Welcome back to Eric's Hobby Workshop. In this video, which is part 1 of a series, I'm going to show you how to build 3 different kinds of bridges for Warhammer, Kill Team, and Necromunda. Let's get to it. Here's the 3 basic bridges we're going to be making in part 1. A catwalk type bridge, a conduit bridge using pipes and an overpass, and a truss bridge. As a basis for the catwalks, I used these toys that I found at a thrift store, but you could use cardboard, plastic art, or anything, just a long rectangle. Take some sculptor's mesh and cut a piece approximately the same size as the card you're going to be using. I folded the edges to try to scope out how much I would need and then cut it with some scissors. Cutting with scissors is much better than cutting with an X-Acto knife because you don't warp all the little pieces. I scuffed it up with some sandpaper so it would hold the glue better, and then I glued that bad boy on. Weighted it down with a few things. Then I'm going to add some plastic art to the edge just to cover the seam. I'm using this floral mesh because it makes a really nice little railing. I got the vinyl covered version. You can get the bare metal version, but I figured that if this adds a little bit of thickness and looks better when scratched, then it's probably the right choice. I trimmed down any extra little nubs sticking out so it's nice and smooth. Beautiful. Next, I lay it down to a pre-cut piece of plastic card the same length, making sure everything lines up nicely. I lay down a bead of glue, stick the railing to it, put glue on the other side, and sandwich it in there. This is going to solidify nice and hard, but it'll still have a little bit of the rubbery flecks of hot glue, which will allow it to be more durable. I glue another piece of trim on the other side, and that is our basic catwalk. Next, I take some pieces of PVC pipe and glue them together in an interesting shape that has a bit of a traverse to it. Helps to measure this before. As you can see, I'd already cut all the pieces so I could assemble them on video for you. It looked like this didn't take me a long time of fooling around with it. I attached the 2 pieces with hot glue. You want them pretty parallel so your platform will stay level on top of them. And then using the same method as the basic catwalk, this time I have to extend it with a few of these extra little toy pieces. I'm going to make some platforms for this. Same method as before, gluing the mesh to the sheeting. Only this time I slightly refined the method and realized that if you glue it on first and cut it out with scissors after, it's actually quite a bit easier. There you go. Hot glue that one on. Add the railing, same way as before. And now to add some detail to the pipes, I cut a strip of cereal box and hot glue that around the middle of the section just to make it look like shorter pipe lengths. I'm trying to disguise the fact it's PVC piping a little bit. I do the same around where the pipe meets the ground here. And when we detail this later, these sections will come in handy and you'll see what I mean when we get there. Next, I'm going to add these little pieces of ladder. I actually cut these out of a toy plastic tennis racket. I didn't get any footage of that, but I'll put it in the next part of the video so you see exactly the type of racket that I got. It's just a cheap dollar store tennis racket thing. Next, I'm using these nail beads. Shout out to an Instagram user named Underhiver who gave me this idea for using these beads as rivets. Using a bit of super glue and a pair of tweezers, I put these beads all around where the pipes meet each other as if they're giant rivets holding them together. This is quite a painstaking process, but I find it's worth it once it's painted up. Next, I add the final bit of trim on the other side. Trim up the lower platform as well. ready for some paint. Let's go to the third bridge. This one I'm basing on a train bridge kit to make a sort of truss style bridge with the two framing pieces. This piece of track that comes in this set actually makes great ladders at this scale if you trim down the extra bits of track sticking off the edges. As you can see, the spacing is just about right. Just thought I'd mention that. So I measure up the truss. It's exactly 9 inches. So using a ruler, I measure a 9 by 3 inch piece of chipboard. Chipboard's really cheap, really great hobby material. Then using the trusses, I mark out where the bottom of the girders are. Using a ruler, I'm going to carefully mark out some lines to make a 1/2 inch trim all around the outside and where I made those markings before. This is going to give us a really cool frame pattern when we cut it out later. I should mention I got this method from a YouTuber named Wylock from Wylock's Armory. He makes a really great Sector Mechanicus set out of only chipboard and a few other household materials. So if you haven't seen it, you should really check it out. Next I use this diamond plate pattern plastic card, which you can get from any hobby store. Take my original rectangle, trace it, score it, and then break off a piece the same size. And I'm going to make a sandwich with my plain piece, my frame piece, and the plastic card in the middle, so you get something like this. I rough that up with a little bit of sandpaper, and then use a bunch of super glue to glue those all together. While it's drying, I put some plastic card on top of it to protect from off-gassing, then a stack of books. That'll keep it flat. Next, I add a bead of hot glue to my truss side and just glue it on. Pretty straightforward. These things are ready for paint. I hit them with a coat of black spray paint. Using a cheap brown acrylic paint, I paint the whole thing. This is going to give me a nice brown rusty color underneath. Then I dry brush with a cheap silver to get that nice weathered metal look. I do the same for my catwalks and my truss bridges. And now for a finishing touch, let's add some hazard striping. I use a piece of Scotch tape and cut diagonal lines in it with an X-Acto blade. Try to make them as evenly spaced as you can, probably better than I did here. I then peel the tape up after cutting out little bars. Make a black stripe on the piece of terrain. Put some tape down just to keep your edges nice and straight. Put your hazard stripe taping over top. Dab on some yellow paint. This one has a lot of pigment, so I really like it. Goes on nice and thick. And the reveal, beautiful. I like to keep these things on just areas where someone might hit their head or something. To me, they symbolize clearance, and they shouldn't be everywhere. They're not a design element, they're a functional thing. And they look great too. So there you have it, 3 different types of bridges. Now for the fun part. Let's make some setups with these and some of the projects from previous videos to see what this sort of modular terrain is capable of. If you like this video, please make sure to share, subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and let us know in the comments what you thought of it. If you have any ideas for future videos, I'd love to hear them, although that doesn't mean I don't have my own ideas, because I got lots of them. Stay tuned for part 2, where I'll show you how to make a few more. And until next time, thanks for watching Eric's Hobby Workshop.